back to What's Stranger Than Strange. My name is Erin. So I'm back today after a little over a month of not being able to record. I did want to go ahead and just jump right into part 2 of what happened to Paula. That was my previous video. That was the first true crime video on my channel. And we're also going to get into the creepier details of this case and the case that involved other individuals who have gone missing in the same area as Miss Weldon. And we'll just get right in. The area that Paula Weldon vanished in was later coined the Bennington Triangle by author Joseph Citro in 1992. The area that we're talking about today is an area that is in southern Vermont. The area has conflicting details when I looked up information about it as far as the square miles, but I saw anything between 36 square miles and 300 square miles of forested area. Now, with the Bennington Triangle, there again has been a number of disappearances that have occurred in the area. There are individuals who have their own folklore about the area. And I also did discover an interesting piece of history that has to do with the Bennington area as well. To get into the history of the Bennington area, the Bennington area of Vermont also is tied in with a few cities called Somerset and Glastonbury. These cities at one point in time were big industrial cities. However, they later on ultimately became ghost towns. And some sources that I have read have said that Somerset and Glastonbury are now so small and so uninhabited, like their population is so low, that even some government entities don't even really recognize these areas. When we get into more of the darker history involving the Bennington, Vermont area, we also should talk about how Native individuals that resided in the area for a long time prior to colonization, I guess, had avoided the area. Like there was something about the area that they too did not like. So that should kind of like, pique the interest a little bit there. But once colonization did occur, there was actually a battle in the area called the Battle of Bennington that occurred in 1777. And according to the website battlefields.org, they said that at least 200 people were dead or seriously wounded, more than 700 were taken prisoner or missing, and there were American casualties of around 70 individuals. Now, this battle that took place did involve those of German origin, British origin, and there were also Native individuals that were involved in the battle, according to that source. So next, we're going to get into some other individuals that had gone missing in the Bennington area, and we'll also talk about some of the rather bizarre details that are involved in these cases. It's some of this stuff is really strange. Like, it's really going to make you think. So we have already discussed, like I said on my previous episode, the disappearance of Paula Weldon. Later on, there was an individual named James Tedford who disappeared around 1950 while traveling. I have seen that it was either by bus or train, but I'm just going to say it sounds more like a bus. Mr. Tedford was on the bus with all of his belongings, and there have been reports of, numerous eyewitnesses that saw this man on the bus, as well as the driver. So while they were traveling and ultimately reached the Bennington area, there was a sudden realization that Mr. Tedford had just vanished into thin air. Some people have speculated that maybe there was like a stop somewhere and he maybe got left behind. However, witnesses have said that that was not the case, that Mr. Tedford was on the bus and he was with them the whole way. But just as soon as they came into the area in Bennington, he was just gone. Like, his belongings were there, but he was just gone. And to this day, there has been no definitive evidence that he was in fact left behind. There's been no remains, nothing. So that is a very bizarre case that took place where somebody just poof vanished. But Miss Weldon, I feel like her disappearance was rather similar. There was also another gentleman named Mitty Rivers, who was in his 70s, who was known to be an avid outdoorsman. That's usually how he's described. He, again, went missing in 1943. And Mr. Rivers, it was believed, had been injured, and those that were in his hunting party could not find him. So everybody's looking around for him. There's no sign of him. And next we'll get into another one. So the next individual that I did want to talk about was a man named Carl Herrick. So his story is rather bizarre. Like, it gets even more weird. We go from just straight up vanishing. Now we're going to go into something that is just, like, the details are just scary. So Mr. Herrick, again, goes missing in the woods. I'm assuming while either hiking or hunting. So he goes missing, and his body is found. Mr. Herrick has no, like, outward signs, right, of any, like, physical trauma, like, on the outside from what you can see. But then, upon his autopsy, they find out that this guy was literally squeezed to death. He was squeezed to death. Like, how does that happen? And so this kind of led to people being like, okay, well, maybe it's animal attacks in the area. Like, maybe a bear got a hold of him. Or maybe, Bigfoot got him. Which, I mean, I guess I could see, like, how that could happen. But I feel like you wouldn't... Like, I've heard other people talk about this, but, like, if it really was a bear, like, why is his body even there? Because wouldn't you think that if an animal really got him, that they would just eat him? So, I don't know. It was super weird. But anyway, I guess upon the autopsy, if I remember correctly, the manner of compression to his body, like, broke his ribs and pushed his ribs into his lungs, and that's what ultimately led to his demise. Super scary, super sad. But there are others who have gone missing in that area. So if you go back and you look at my first video, so if you look at part 1, don't forget to do that, you will see that there were other individuals who had gone missing in that area who were not even from that area in Vermont. So there are people who will just flat out disappear, like I said earlier, or their bodies will just end up in that area. So there has also been some speculation that maybe there was, like, a serial killer in that area, or there's people that are, like, murdering people and they're dumping their bodies. So it's almost like a dumping ground. Very, very sad. To move on to the next part, though, we are going to go ahead and talk about some of the other theories that people have relating to the Bennington area. So one of the first ones being that native peoples that were in the area prior, again, to colonization didn't like the area. I have heard that some people were worried that it was potentially inhabited by like a Wendigo, which we will talk about on a different episode. I'll go more into that. I have also heard, though, that some people think it may have been like a sacred type of ground, and that's why native peoples tried to like stay out of that area. And for those that are kind of into like weird conspiracies, or you just follow kind of like, you know, just strange news in general, there has been a very large amount of drone activity in various parts of the US, but especially out on the East Coast. With that, there is a lot of speculation because like aliens have been confirmed by the government as being real things, that it could potentially just be alien abductions. Like people are traveling through the woods and they're being abducted, and that maybe that's why we're not seeing them anymore. Like people just go and they're just gone, you know? They're just being like pulled up into the sky. I don't know. But it could walk along the lines of like people being taken, there being like potentially experimentation done on them, and then they're just brought right back. That's another possibility. And we did discuss animal attacks. Another thing that we really haven't gotten into was subject of time slips. So with time slips, the Bennington Triangle was named the Triangle because of the odd occurrences that were happening there, similar to the well-known triangle, the Bermuda Triangle. When there have been accounts of others that have gone into what we know as the Bermuda Triangle and having like super bizarre experiences happen to them, that they are seeing things that point to potential vortex type activity or time slips. So in my mind, I feel that it's very probable or plausible that there's something about that area that, you know, obviously scared native people. So it could very well be a time slip phenomena that's going on there. I have heard that it is not uncommon for people who go hiking in like very heavily wooded areas to run into time slip occurrences. I have heard one story where there was a family that went out into the woods, and one of the family members got separated because, you know, for instance, they had to stop and use the restroom or something like that. Everybody else continues on. So when they try to catch up to their family, they get lost. But they do eventually find their family. And, you know, looking at their watch, you know what I mean? They only think, hey, you know, it's only been an hour. And when their family finds them, their family's panicked. The police have already been called to try to come search for them, because, you know, it's been like 6 hours since they went missing. I do feel like that's a very, very probable thing that could be happening. Because, I mean, if you think about it, like forested areas, there's so many areas that are just so dense that I'm sure people really have not had the ability to fully study a lot of these areas. You know, you're out in nature. There's a lot of energy sources too. So like rocks and stuff like limestone and stuff like that, that is, you know, known to have like a particular type of link to paranormal or abnormal activity. So in my mind, I do feel like time slip phenomena really could be happening. I still just cannot get over that though. Like, you get lost in the woods, but it hasn't been that long to you. So you find your family and they're freaking out because like you've only been out there in your mind for an hour. Everything, you know, you're looking at your watch. Everything's telling you I've only been out here for an hour. But then like your family is like, no, you've been out here for like 6. So, I mean, hear me out. So, you know, like some of the individuals that have gone missing, right? Because I try to think outside the box like this, okay? So, like, the one man that went missing that was on the bus, Miss Paula, how they just go vanish. They just vanish, like, without a trace. Like, they're just gone. People saw them, but they're just gone. Like, what if this type of stuff really is happening, right? And in their mind, so say like Miss Paula, she goes out and she's walking and she's just out there just going through the woods. What if like something is really happening like that where to her it only feels like it's been like a few hours, like it's the same day that she left. But to us, she's been gone all this time. How many decades later? But maybe though, like she's still out there, but she's just walking through the woods. Like, does that not like mess with your head to think that? Like, what if some of these people one day just resurface? It's wild to think about how there is a possibility of stuff like that happening. That's just wild to me. But to go back to the animal attacks like we were talking about earlier, one thing that I've heard like across the board with people that have discussed this is if you really did have an animal attack, you would have outward physical signs that something hurt you. But if it really was an animal though, like why is there still a body? Because in my mind, if you get attacked by an animal, again, you're gonna have marks. And they're gonna potentially just eat you. They're gonna devour you. Like, I don't think that you would come back whole if it was really an animal attack. It's so weird. The other thing too, though, is the notion that there potentially was a serial killer because there was like that big cluster of people that all went missing within, I want to say like a 20-ish year period back in like the early 1900s, up to about like 1950-ish. Maybe there really could have been a serial killer out there. The only thing is that I also find very bizarre is that the disappearances that have happened have been, I want to say, pretty continuous. I don't feel like there's like a massive number of people that have gone missing, but we're just talking about the ones that are like very well known. But one thing I did want to say though is that the disappearances have occurred, believe it or not, and deaths, like people being found out there, have occurred up until very recently. One thing that I found rather shocking, between that first video that I made talking about Paula's disappearance and now there was actually another person that was found deceased in that area that some people might recognize because they did work in entertainment for a while. I don't really want to fully disclose the details of who it was just because it is such a new thing that had happened, and it's very sad. but I find the timing of it to be really odd. But to kind of get to the point of what I'm saying is, if there really was a serial killer out there or an animal at one point that was doing these things, they've lived for a very long time, if you catch my drift. Like, unless these are people that are, like, if it's a person, unless you've been doing this stuff and you're teaching other people to do this stuff, I really don't think it's the same type of thing that's occurring, or the same type of person, or the same individual that's doing these things. So I kind of feel like it, in a weird way, like, kind of throws out the serial killer aspect of it. And then as far as, like, the animals, same thing. Animals don't typically live as long as people do. And I feel like if it was an animal attack, like, are you just, if you're a bear, are you teaching your cubs to do the same thing? Like, that bear would have to live for a very long time. Like, if you're someone that does believe in, like, the Bigfoot phenomena, that really does make sense that potentially it really could be something like that. Thinking about the sheer size of that type of being able to pick a person up and, like, crush them. Or just the fact that it is believed to be, like, a paranormal type entity. Like, it does not operate in the same, I'm going to use the word constraints, the same, like, time constraints as us, the same, potentially the same planes as us. Which we can talk about that on another episode too, because I'm going to tell you right now, those of you that are out there searching for Bigfoot, I don't think you want to find them. I'm going to tell you right now, you don't want to find them, and you don't want them to find you. Bigfoot is a lot more heavy of a subject than what you think. Anyway, I just wanted to kind of delve into a little bit more on the Bennington Triangle phenomena. If anybody has ever been to Bennington, Vermont, or you've heard stories about that area, please let me know. Don't forget to drop a comment below. I really would like to be a lot more active on my channel. I've just had a lot going on in my life outside of my channel, but I am going to be posting more videos. I'm attempting to do them more regularly. Also, being that it's been a while, don't forget that I am still looking for individuals that would like to share their own stories of just anything that's just bizarre. Like, it could be paranormal, it could be something that's scary. It doesn't have to be scary. Please paste the story into the body of the email. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and until we meet again, everybody, take care. Bye bye.